but I want to talk about other stuff. One is that like 8 people have come down with COVID, including the president, after this, an outdoor ceremony nominating Amy Coney Barrett, and then a more indoor hobnobbing, mostly without masks, um, uh, after the ceremony where she was nominated, or whatever you want to call it, get together with a shitload of people. And I just want to say that, well, Amy Barrett, the nominee, she had COVID back in July. Um, she has 7 kids. She brought all 7. Nobody fucking wore a mask. And now people are coming down with COVID. Um, and my question is, we're supposed to hire her for SCOTUS, for the Supreme Court, based on her sound judgment. And I just want to say, what kind of fucking sound judgment is to bring your 7 kids maskless to a COVID party?
I have a great answer for that, Rick. Are you done?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. This is what this is reminding me of, okay? Most of our viewers may not be old enough to remember this, but we had something called the AIDS crisis when about 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And
in like 1981, maybe?
No, not 80, maybe more like 91, I think it was.
No, because people, I was in New York starting in 80.
Rick, the exact date's not important.
Yeah, right,
Let me just make my point. So there was this thing called AIDS that was killing you, and it was sexually transmitted. And for a good solid 5 years, people were really afraid to have sex with strangers. And if you got AIDS, it was 100% certain death. And there was no cure, and people assumed that everybody had it. You had to assume that everybody had it, and even wearing a condom was suspected as not being effective protection because the AIDS virus was so small that it could get underneath the rubber or the latex or whatever. So
yeah, you needed to use synthetic condoms. You couldn't use lambskin because
but there's more. So let me just get on with the point. So what happened was this. The first thing that the more clear-headed people realized was that in the United States, it was basically a gay disease, that gay men and intravenous drug users got it. So lesbians, for example, never got it at all. I mean, they could get it, but they were the rarest subset. So the clear-minded people began to realize, well, if you're heterosexual and you could take tests and gradually it was very, very difficult, but they gradually began to develop treatments for it, and people changed their behaviors somewhat, but eventually AIDS became not a concern to anybody. I haven't even heard the word AIDS used until just now, for months or maybe even years, used meaningfully.
Well, now, it's still killing people.
Let me make my point, Rick.
Okay.
So I think you see where I'm going with this. The cooler heads among us have realized that the virus, number one, generally affects older people. It's if you're in very large crowds, if you're breathing all over people, and that we basically, if you get it, you have a 98% chance of living, and every day the treatments are getting better and better, and a vaccine is literally months away. In Russia, they already have one. It might work. There's no reason to assume that it doesn't.
There
And
are reasons.
so,
Okay.
well, I mean, you could go with your prejudice and just say Russians never do anything right, but
No, no,
you know,
just
it might,
with the
it
early vaccines, or they get better as we.
yeah, right. But what I'm saying is, if you're healthy now, it is it is madness to let this virus run your life. And that was my attitude about AIDS. There was a year or two when I was afraid of getting it, and gradually I went back to normal life, and I made the right decision. So what you don't understand because you've been traumatized psychologically, you're no longer able to think clearly about this virus. I'm sorry to break this to you, Rick. There's a large segment of the population that has been traumatized psychologically, and they're terrified of it. And I don't blame them. I mean, it could get you, but as the months and years go by, this virus is going to just become a bad memory. And
Like a
that's what,
miracle, it'll go away.
well, yeah, it will go away, Rick. That's what'll
Okay, so
happen.
anyway, so you say I'm terrorized by this virus. I do. I'm super cautious because I'm in a position where I can be. I tell Carol, who goes out more than I do, um, to fucking don't fuck up. Keep your mask on. Don't get close to people. Because um, but I had to go out to get a flu vaccine, which is kind of dumb because if I never leave the fucking house, um, why do I need to be vaccinated? But still, I went. And on the way back is the gym I used to go to. All the gyms in California are currently closed down because of the COVID. But
Most
I
of them are
know of a way
permanent.
to break in to the backyard of the gym I go to, where they have like some old beat up equipment. It's not as good as the stuff inside, but I know how to get at it, and I could have a little workout. And I'm like, should I do that? And I'm like, no, fuck it. I've got equipment at home. Why should I, put myself at risk of, somebody calling the cops, that there's somebody there who shouldn't be there, or that, some fucking homeless person has been sleeping on the equipment or whatever. I'm like, I really want to get like an outside workout, but not enough to, break into a place. So I went home and I just used my home shit. And I'm lucky enough to be in the position where I don't have to go out. I've got a pension, so I get paid for staying home. I've got a reality show in development, and I'm not the developer, other people are, where I'm just waiting to see if it fucking happens. And shit like this usually doesn't, but still, I got shit happening while I get to stay home. So I like that I get to stay home given the current situation. Um, and I have the luxury of doing it. Um, he has. He's denounced it a lot, but he also like hesitates sometimes or misspeaks.
You got to repeat the question, Rick.
Oh, our director asked, "Does it bother me that Trump's never um, denounced white supremacy?" But let me get my points, and then we'll talk about it. But Trump has denounced it a number of times, but then he's kind of also not denounced it a number of times. But anyway, let me fucking what were we talking about? Fucking
Well, I would
COVID.
just like to say,
AIDS.
wait,
Fucking AIDS.
wait,
AIDS. Let me talk about fucking AIDS in context. What happened in America was we had the Vietnam War, which went from the early 60s to almost 1975. And then we had Watergate, um, which fucked up, from 1973 through 1974. And then we had the pill being invented in the early 60s. So what happened was the 60s were very turbulent into the 70s. And then all of a sudden, Nixon went away and the Vietnam War went away. And we had this pill you could take so you wouldn't get pregnant. And for the rest of the 70s, it became the disco era. And it was a fuck fest. Um, Gay guys had achieved some liberation from nonstop harassment from the police. Gay guys were fucking each other at a fantastic clip. Straight people were fucking each other like maniacs. The whole country was just fucking. And
I
then
wish I hadn't brought it up, but go ahead, Rick.
but it's and I missed it. I was too young and too nerdy. I wished I caught the tail end of it. But um, what happened was, beginning into the 80s, gay guys started getting this mysterious disease that wrecked their immune systems, and straight America, just started giving each other herpes. What you overlooked was that AIDS there were not that many cases at first, or at least cases that people knew of. But fucking herpes was fucking going crazy in the early 80s. And then Nancy Reagan started her Just Say No campaign. And then people were getting sick of the nonstop fuck fest. The new generation came in.
Is
And was
there a
like,
point to all this, Rick?
the point is that AIDS was a legitimate fucking AIDS has killed more Americans than any other event in our history if you consider it as one long event. AIDS has killed 675,000 Americans and still continues to kill us, though at a much slower rate than at first because we have decent drugs. But it was definitely a big fucking killy thing that was a legitimate, like it killed a bunch of people. And it wasn't it that people were unduly afraid of something that only affected gay people. What bummed America out was the nonstop fuck fest, all the herpes, and then people just getting sick of old hippies and disco people. The next generation was much more conservative. Because I kept going back to high school. I went to high school with some of the fuckfest generation. Then 9 years later, I went back to high school with the rebelling against the fuckfest generation. People got more conservative, and AIDS. We got treatments and everything, and it was a legit thing, and continues to still kill people. But there was a lot of other shit going on, and fucking the COVID has killed 1/3 as many Americans as AIDS has. It's the fourth or fifth deadliest event in American history. And if I have the luxury to stay home, then yay, I get to stay home.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
okay. The next point I want to bring up is you mentioned Tom Fitton, who's the director of Judicial Watch, right?
right.
Okay. Tom Fitton has big fucking arms. He obviously lifts a lot of weights. And he likes to wear shirts that show off his muscles. And since we were talking about steroids, I have a theory that some conservative pundits, um, I'm just going to mention one because the other guy has a tumor right now, and I don't want to really, go after him while he's sick. But like, I think Joe Rogan might use steroids, which is his choice. But like, it's there are a number of Republican um, pundits who seem like possible shiny-headed steroid users. And on the liberal side, there's Chris Cuomo, who's a fucking animal. Also, Anderson Cooper. I don't think either of them use steroids, but they both lift a lot of weights. I don't know if I have much of a point, except that I think Joe Rogan might use steroids.
Well, Joe Rogan, by the way, he's not a conservative.
He's a
He hasn't.
libertarian, and he's
Yeah,
pretty. He's pretty casual about what he is. He entertains, opinions from across the spectrum, but he has a lot of conservative voices on his show.
right. I mean, right. He mentioned on that note. I was watching that he had met early MMA fighters. Uh, he believes were using steroids, and it kind of makes sense um, because when you look at these guys, they were, they were in peaks of condition that, uh, you know, seem hardly possible. and they were throwing themselves at each other like um, like maniacs. And he said that even he thought even Emelianenko, Fedor, who was considered arguably the best MMA fighter of all time from Russia. Uh, I mean, of all over the place, he happened to be from Russia. He thought that Fedor used steroids and that all those early guys were actually encouraged to use steroids because it made the fights more aggressive. So it wouldn't surprise me if Rogan was using steroids. Um, that brings me to another subject. I don't know if our director will approve of this because he seems to be doing more directing tonight. Director, if you think that we're getting a little boring, go ahead and interrupt me. I'll change subjects. Okay, okay. I'll try and repeat your point to the viewers. The director says that even though people knew that AIDS could kill them, they still continued to have sexual partners and carry on with that part of their lives. And the director is saying that people know they can get COVID or the China virus by hanging out in groups without masks, but they're still doing it, and increasingly so. And so you're scapegoating Trump by blaming him for all this, which is what Rick is sort of obliquely doing. What it is human beings want to go back to their normal lives, and more they're gaining the courage to take chances. Now, it may be foolhardy courage, but basically, people are poking their noses out of their caves, sniffing around and furtively reemerging into the forest. And I think that's what's going to have to happen. I don't really think we have a choice on that. So I think I dealt with your question, Director.
Yeah, so there is a lot of curiosity about what Trump's once Trump returns to the White House and resumes, his full scope of activities. He's already released a tweet or a statement saying that he's learned so much about COVID from having COVID. And then liberal Twitter has gone crazy saying you don't have to fucking get COVID to learn about COVID. You should have learned about this shit fucking 8 months ago. But anyway, people are curious about whether he'll have a new attitude about COVID and about masks or any of that shit. So that's just an open question at this point. Um, and as the liberal on the show, I just I'm obligated to say that that um, liberals are annoyed with Trump because he's part of the whole deal that kind of has aligned not wearing masks with being politically conservative, rebelling against or considering mask wearing a little bit tyrannical as being more associated with conservatives than with libs. Um,
Are you done?
and yeah, I don't know if we need to argue
Okay.
about that.
No, as I say, I'm not a fanatic. I've said this before, but it bears repeating. I have classes all week long, and with the young people and the older people that aren't afraid or worried, we don't wear masks. We never did. I never locked down during the lockdown because I would have gone broke. Uh, but I never believed in the lockdown. But the other thing is that I do right now. I have my first class with I have three people in their 70s, and I wear a mask. Not only do I wear a mask, but I wear gloves, and I swab my hands down with alcohol periodically during the class. I even stay as far away from them as I can uh, while still trying to give them art instruction, which isn't easy. Um, so what I've been arguing for a while now is letting Americans judge the situation and take the risks that they think are reasonable. Um, so if you're in a closed room, you're with an elderly person, by all means, take every precaution. If you're in an open room, an open environment, uh, you can play the odds. Now, that Rick is probably already thinking, well, what about the 8 people that got sick at the Comey Barrett meeting? The 3 senators, Kellyanne Conway, the president. What about them? And my argument would be that I'm going to make a bet that all 8 of those people are going to be just fine. I'm going to make a bet, don't interrupt me, that the American people are going to see that this was like a severe flu, that they went in, they took the treatments the way that we've developed them in the past 8 months, and I think they're going to be fine, and I think it's going to be a great thing for the American people to see that we've almost gotten it to the point where it's a severe flu. And when it's at that point, we can go back to our lives. That's what the president is trying to do. It's very, very patriotic. It's the right thing to say, look, I'm going to be just fine. I had some mild symptoms. I took these 3 drugs, which are available to every American.
Well, not exactly.
No. Every American can get remdesivir, dexamethasone, and the Regeneron or whatever.
Yeah, good luck getting Regeneron.
Regeneron.
Doctor, give me the immune plasma.
Okay.
The other 2, yes. The Regeneron,
yes.
I think, is a tough call.
I understand. Regeneron has been given to 300 people.
Yeah, but out of 300 million people, so no, I mean,
Rick,
that's a tough drug to get, unless you're the president.
Okay, Rick, it's been given to 300 people, and they didn't make it so they could throw it in the toilet. They made it.
Saying that
Rick,
the other 2 drugs are widely available and fairly.
We got that point, Rick.
Okay, all right.
Regeneron will be widely available very, very soon, within weeks. Yeah.
Nope.
They're distributing it as quickly as they can.
Yeah, you make it from people. Regeneron is people. Soylent Green is Regeneron is people.
Actually, there's an artificial antibody treatment that they're working on. I believe it is the Regeneron. There's an artificial treatment. What it is they make antibodies in a lab that are that react to any virus. There are various types of antibodies that can be made artificially in labs, and I believe this is one of them. But the point I'm trying to make is that that we have medications, and you do not lock down the United States for an illness that has a 98% survival rate and treatments and a vaccine within a few weeks. You don't do that.
Not a few weeks. You misspoke. You don't mean a few weeks.
I do. It may be 4 weeks, which equals a month, but I believe it's coming very soon.
Yeah, then you're buying bullshit. But anyway.
Okay. The point I'm trying to make is you are content to live in your house until the economy is destroyed, and I'm not. Well, the rest of us are going to go back to our lives, and America has to survive this. We can't shut down anymore. And right now, there's no question that the Democrats want the country shut down so that they can cause people to be miserable and vote for a change. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to say, your life is miserable. It's because of Trump. If you want the misery to stop, vote for Biden.
No, that's not really. Now, let me tell you honestly what I want. I would love for the country to wear masks,
I
everybody.
know that. I know. I
All right,
know.
but that doesn't mean you have to shut down the country. Everybody just goes around with their fucking masks.
But
That's
that's
thing
not the
one.
way it's going to work. That's not the way it's going to work.
All
That's
right,
the
so fine,
point.
but it probably will work when we get a vaccine. Well, the masks plus vaccine plus Biden as president, a lot of shit will happen. But let me talk about another thing that I want to give away the game, the liberal game. We have three Republican senators who have COVID. Now, I kind of agree with you. Based on the way this is playing out, we know that if you get a light dusting of COVID particles, you may not get that sick. And I would bet that the 8 people who got sick at the Comey Barrett party probably got a light dusting. I mean, it's still kind of too early to tell for sure. I'm guessing that it's possible. Now, Trump seems to have gotten fairly sick in that his oxygen levels dropped, but I still don't think he's deathly ill, but who fucking knows? But anyway, if there's a chance that none of the COVID people at the SCOTUS party are going to get what's yeah, there's also there's that, there's a bunch of shit. But anyway,
Rick, repeat what he says.
our director says I personally, Rick Rosner, don't know how sick people are going to get, and he's right. I'm I'm guessing that I mean there's a good chance that that for some of these people it will just be like a bad flu because they only got a light dusting of the shit. But anyway, what the Democrats hope, what I hope, the Democrats wouldn't. I don't know if they would say this, but obviously it goes. What we want as a Democrat, I'm hoping 5 Republican senators get the COVID to the point where the Republicans no longer have a majority of people who can show up and confirm Amy Barrett, because the Republicans have what 54 senators, and if they drop under 50, then they can't confirm a SCOTUS justice, and that would be lovely.
Well, one of the things that Pelosi did when she took over was make it so that people from the House of Representatives didn't have to show up. They could video phone in. So that's unless the person's on their deathbed and can't say yay or nay, your wish will not be granted,
Well,
Rick.
that's the House. The Senate, Mitch McConnell's in charge of the House, and I think he still wants. He may have, but he may have to change the rules to
Yeah,
make it so you can vote remotely.
yeah. You met Mitch McConnell's in charge of the Senate.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and well, he might do that. So, is there anything else before we?
yeah. I
By the
want to
way,
tease a couple. You hate personal stories, and so I'm not going to tell them tonight because we've gone for. But I want to tease a couple close encounters I had with the whole AIDS thing back in the 80s. And one of the stories includes peripherally Adam Sandler. So, and the other story I shouldn't even fucking tell, but I will anyway. At probably next week, or we'll probably do an episode after the VP debate on Wednesday. And
well, well, hang on. I have something to say on that. I actually did lose 3 good friends to AIDS. 4. Well, 3 were just acquaintances, but I lost a good friend to AIDS. So I lost 4 people that I knew to AIDS who died. It was very sad, but they were all confined to gay. It was always gay men. They were all gay men. And so I'm just saying that the American people gradually realized in America, not in Africa, In Africa, it was a heterosexual disease, but in America, if you were a heterosexual male or a lesbian female, or obviously, you
Well,
could
IV
go
drug
back.
users too.
Right, right. You could go back to having sex. So that factor and the factor that condoms turned out to be fairly reliable protection, and they gradually came up with treatment, so it wasn't a death sentence. Those things took a lot of the sting out of it for most Americans. But anyway, what's your story about Adam Sandler? Don't tease it. We can go on for your story, and
All right, so
then we'll sign off.
I was writing for Remote Control, the MTV quiz show. Sandler was a performer on that show. I wrote a character called Trivia Delinquent. I don't know that I came up with it, but I was the one who was responsible for writing it. And they said I could play it. And then they took it away from me and gave it to Sandler.
Oh,
And then
and
they gave it
guess
back
what?
to me.
Wait. It turned out that you were actually the more talented comedian. So that
No,
was
no, no. Fucking Sandler is much more talented than I am. But it was early days for him. It was before SNL for him. He was a stand-up who was doing a lot of work for MTV, who was already playing characters on Remote Control. But they said I could have this character, and it went back and forth between me and Sandler like 5 times. And by the 5th time, the stress of it, I guess, gave me shingles. And so my whole butt and back erupted in this rash. Um, and the deal is MTV paid terribly. I was getting $200 or $300 a week for writing for the show. So I had to keep doing my other jobs, modeling, doing nude modeling to make enough money to live in New York. And so I got the shingles, and they weren't debilitating, but I was all fucking rashed up, and I got a job posing at the gay community center down in Lower Manhattan. And I stand up there naked with the shingles, and I don't know, I just did my job. But later, I found out and felt really bad that shingles are a sign of you get shingles when you have AIDS and your immune system is depressed. And so when they saw me, the guys drawing me saw a man with shingles. Um, Obviously, they would have thought I had pretty serious AIDS, which is sad because I'm a symbol of their impending doom standing in front of them, and they have to stare at me um, for 3 hours. And
wow.
when I found that out, I felt bad because it was like I'm sure it was a bummer for them, and they didn't, had I known, I could have said, well, I wouldn't have said, but I don't know, maybe I wouldn't even have done the job because I didn't want to be a symbol of death for these people, and it wasn't because I had AIDS, it was because I had fucking Sandler.
Well, all right.
Well, no, I had Sandleritis, where the stress of losing out to him, because he eventually was trivia delinquent.
Well, not to step on your story, but just to give people an idea, back then, if you were gay, you knew several people that had died of AIDS. I mean, it absolutely burned through the gay community in America, killing
I don't know,
everyone.
80%, I don't know, some crazy.
It
I mean, if you
it
were
was
urban,
it wasn't like it. Well, wait. When it comes to the Wuhan virus, everyone knows someone who knows someone that has died, or everyone knows someone who's known someone who knows someone that's died. When it came to AIDS, everyone knew someone that had died of AIDS. That's how many more people were dying. So it was really bad, and a lot of people, uh, I mean, gay men and pretty much the whole society became very, very careful about who they had sex with. It was very unusual to meet someone that wasn't afraid of getting it. It changed everybody's behavior. So that was a real plague, um, in my opinion. So, do you have anything else to say about? You think Adam Sandler is a genius? I have never seen an Adam Sandler film that I thought was any good at all, and there's never been a single joke out of the mouth of Adam Sandler that I've laughed at.
I think Adam Sandler is very talented. Billy Madison was great. Um,
Was that the recent one where he's a jeweler or
no,
something?
that was oh dang it, but no, that was not that one.
Uh,
Um, that was his one where he had to go back to school, all 12 grades, because he just hadn't learned anything. Happy Mattis, no wait, Happy Gilmore was great. Some of his later, and when he
yeah,
works for other directors, like in
I
Punch
like
Drunk
I
Love,
like I actually like the one where he was in Hawaii and he met a
yeah,
girl with no
51st
memory.
Dates was good.
Yeah,
He's
that
he,
was actually in Hawaii. Come to think of it, he's not that bad. I shouldn't be so hard on
no,
Sandler. You're right.
and fucking, he seems like he's a good guy. He
Um,
Oh, okay, all right. So we're talking about Trump being a racist, or Lance can probably argue not, but Trump was reluctant to denounce the Proud Boys, but the Proud Boys were delighted. And then an attack on the Proud Boys um, was committed by gay men on Twitter, where they took over the hashtag Proud Boys and just said, like, overwhelmed Twitter with tweets about here are me and my Proud Boys, and it's a bunch of gay guys in booty shorts on a float in a gay pride parade. Because you don't have to be a white supremacist to be proud of yourself and your boys.
well, the Proud Boys are not white supremacists. They're conservatives. So if they're white supremacists, then I'm a white supremacist. And everyone you've ever met that doesn't agree with you is a white supremacist, Rick. I would just like to say that one of the reasons I hate the Democrats, there's so many, but in order to get power, um, what Marxists used to do was to turn poor people against rich people. And that doesn't work in America because there's so much mobility between the classes. So the Marxists decided they would turn the races against each other. So the two reasons to vote Democrat is if you think that America is this incredible racist country. You're trying to fight racism, which practically doesn't exist in this country. And the other reason to vote Democrat is because you're afraid that the temperature of the planet is going to go up 2 or 3 degrees 80 years from now. So two of the stupidest fucking reasons on earth to vote for a presidential candidate, because Biden's going to save us from racism and global warming. Think of how false and stupid, not even scientific, not even provable, are the foundations of your party and their appeal to people. I mean, it's really pathetic. My president just created peace in the Middle East. There's a new Arab country, Lebanon, wants to join has just signaled that they want to join. That would mean that Israel has made peace with 3 or 4 Arab countries. He crushed ISIS. He oversaw the best economy we've ever had before the Wuhan. Um, he's ending political correctness. He pulled out of the Iran deal that was going to give Iran a nuclear bomb.
They're closer now than ever.
Well, and they're going to get it. That's what Trump actually, you know what Trump did? He
made it
said, you know
possible
what?
for Iran to get the nuclear bomb like
No,
fucking
no,
right now.
no, no. What he did was he said this. He said, we're not going to make a deal with you where we give you $150 billion cash and then let you run rampage all over the Middle East, taking over Iraq, Lebanon, Syria. We're not going to do that. Instead of doing that, we're going to kill your soldiers. And then if you develop an atomic bomb, if you think you're going to do that, we're going to unleash Israel and ourselves on you. So if that's what you want to do, you're going to get flattened. And that's the only way you can deal with them. Obama basically wanted to be an ally with Iran. He wanted them to get a nuclear bomb. He hated Israel, and he wanted to be their ally. So for that and 1,000 other reasons, I have good, solid, logical reasons. He's first in war by defeating ISIS, and he oversaw a brilliant economy. Those are logical, reasonable reasons. You're going to vote for Biden because you got to stop racism, and you're afraid the temperature is going to go up, Rick.
This is pathetic. I mean, you've said a lot of stuff I consider garbage, and a lot of, but
every word out of your mouth is garbage, Rick.
All right. So for the first time since Herbert Hoover left office in 1933, a president that will leave office with fewer people employed, fewer than when he began office.
It's not his fault.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Wait, Rick. The unemployment situation now is the same numbers that Obama had when he was reelected, when he beat Romney. We've got the same unemployment level.
It's fewer people working than when Trump...
I know, it sounds like great rhetoric, but we now have 7% unemployment, the same as Obama had. So fuck you, Rick.
Okay. And global warming or climate change, you know, it's one of the last great capitalistic opportunities.
Oh, I can't wait for my opportunity.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you've got your own...
Don't give me this stupid speech about how we're all going to invest in green energy. That's bullshit.
Well, okay, but fine. But anyway, you
That's
call it bullshit. But no, I don't want to argue about this. I want to mention one more thing, which is a game you can play at home, which is, you know, I just think it's fucking interesting in that look at the shit that's on TV. The shit you've loved, you know, and imagine how it has to change because it's from the before times. I'm not talking about how movies of the future will have a bunch of people wearing masks, and they probably will for a while. But Carol and I just binge watched on Netflix a show called Emily in Paris, starring Lily Collins. And Lily Collins is a very pretty white girl. And it's from the before times because it's fucking Paris and nobody's wearing a mask. And she's running around and she's meeting rich, exciting people. She works for a PR agency. And it's about how much fun you can have in the most beautiful city in the world, hobnobbing with rich, handsome people. And it just feels like an artifact of the before times. And if you look at movies from, you know, any time before like 2015, you know, like classic white couples, you're like, that would...
The Israelis have begged the Obama administration not to let Iran develop a nuclear bomb. They did everything they could they eventually had to stop coupling their defense with America because they knew that the Obama administration would immediately give whatever secrets they had to the Iranians. So I can tell you right now that if Biden is elected, Iran will get a nuclear bomb. And I don't know why that is so completely unconcerning to you. Have you ever considered for a minute that the safety of Israel is depending on your vote?
Not a lot, but some. And as I said, Iran is closer to having a nuclear bomb now than they were under
Well, you don't know
Obama. Now,
that.
now you know you could
Rick, you
argue that
don't know
even
that.
if we even if we hadn't thrown even if Trump hadn't thrown out the treaty, though other countries are still trying to enforce it, but Iran said fuck you without the US, we're not going to follow it. Because it wasn't just, but anyway, you could argue and will that they would be closer anyway because that was a shitty treaty. But I would think that I think that the treaty, at the very least slowed them down, and we're in worse shape without the treaty than we were with it.
Well, Rick, the treaty would have been over by now. I don't know if you know that, but it was a 10-year treaty. So I don't recall exactly which year it was signed. Might have been 2013 or 2011. But Iran is already permitted by the treaty to start getting buying conventional hardware from any country on earth. That means the most advanced weapon systems from Russia, China, France. So they're already doing that. And once the treaty is up, it was only a 10-year treaty, they were permitted to go ahead and develop a nuclear bomb. There was nothing in the treaty that worked after 10 years. It no longer was valid.
All right,
So
so
the Obama administration had no plan after that. And since the treaty was signed, the Iranians developed their own very effective nuclear missile launching capabilities, which was permitted in the treaty. They were permitted to develop the systems necessary to launch the weapons.
all right, so
Now,
that's bad, obviously, but
no,
I would bet
but
you, I'll
under
bet you a certain amount of money that if Biden becomes president within his first year, um, well, that he will push to return to the negotiating table with
Yeah,
Iran.
they're not going to stop. You can't negotiate Hitler out of developing a secret weapon if he wants to. You're not going to talk him out of it, Rick. Are you living in a dream world? The Iranians are willing to have suffered untold hardship, economic hardship, the likes of which would cause civil war in this country, for one reason, so they can get a nuclear bomb, so they can drop it on Israel and us. You're not going to talk them out of it.
I don't know. We
So
talked him into a treaty
yeah, the
10 years,
treaty.
nine, 8, 7 years
Okay,
ago.
what the treaty did
I
was
know,
give them 10 years to build up the infrastructure so that they have turnkey abilities to make the bomb as soon as the treaty was up. You see, I'll explain this briefly.
but
You
no, because
don't.
you've
No,
explained
I
it.
need to. I'll explain briefly. When you're trying to develop a nuclear bomb, the whole point is not to do everything you can to get yourself one little bomb that you can keep in the basement of your country. The goal is to become a nuclear power. And there are a lot of things you can build up, infrastructures, missile defenses, missile launching systems, radar, a lot of technologies and industries that you can build up without actually getting the warhead. So that's what the Iranians have been doing since that treaty was signed, is building up everything they're going to need to finally, when the treaty was up, they were going to get the warhead, stick it on the bomb, and shoot it at Israel.
But it's
Stick it
been
on
up
the
for
missile.
3 years because
Okay,
Trump threw out the
okay.
treaty.
No, so what Trump has assured them is this. There is no treaty, Iran. If you look like you're getting a bomb, we're going to smash you. That's his treaty. His treaty is, we know when you're getting near, we have excellent intelligence, we're just going to smack you. And
All right.
or if we don't, the Israelis will. And that's the only way you can deal with that country. But you've got this fantasy in your head that Biden is going to talk them out of it. Well, how old are you? You're 60 years old, and you think Biden is going to talk these homicidal lunatics out of developing a nuclear bomb? What's he going to do? What is he going to say to them that's going to change their mind?
I think that it took what? It took 3 years of negotiations to get the first treaty.
Which allowed them to develop the infrastructure to
all right,
develop a bomb. It
so there's
protected
still a
them.
decent chance that you say Trump will bomb them. Hasn't happened yet.
There's more. I just want to say this vital and important thing. The treaty that Obama signed, literally, I remember the paragraph, said the United States would defend Iran against a third party that might try to attack Iran. It was a treaty that defended Iran until they could get a bomb.
Well,
not the reverse.
All right, so I think there's a reasonable chance that whoever is president, if Iran gets close, that either the U.S. plus Israel or the U.S. will stand away and let Israel. Iran could still get bombed, and that may be the only way to deal with it.
But Biden has given no indication whatsoever. Neither Biden nor Obama gave any indication that they would bomb Iran. They actually signed a treaty. In the treaty, it said that Iran would be defended.
Yeah.
During the length of the period of the treaty.
Anyway, you asked me a question. I answered the question. You attacked me.
I don't believe you believe that. I don't believe you believe that. I don't think you think that Biden will go to war to protect Israel from an Iranian bomb.
Well, frankly, I think that he won't go to war, but that that Israel would bomb Iran.
But the treaty he signed made it so that the United States would share intelligence with Iran if it looked like Israel was going to attack them.
Yeah, I think that in that instance that we would bust the treaty and we would not tip off fucking Israel. That's just what I think. You can think I'm naive or what. You can think of whatever you fucking want. I want to end the show. We've been going almost 2 hours. We were supposed to go less time. That's what I think. You can say it.
No, it's childlike. You're of a fantasy. You're living in a fantasy world.
All right.
No, seriously, think about it. Your vote is going to cause a second Holocaust. And your brainwashing is so deep that you keep telling yourself, no, Biden wouldn't let that happen. Of course he'd let it happen. Admit it to yourself.
I don't fucking think so.
All right. I'm fed up.
Okay.
You're a grown man and you have no business being this naive.
Fine. All right. So thanks for watching.
Goodbye.
Bye, everybody. Lance versus Rick at gmail.com if you want to throw money at us via PayPal. And thanks for watching. We'll be back later this week to talk about Kamala versus Pence. Yeah, and what's weird is it took me fucking, we still going? It took me fucking, sadly, it took me nearly 4 years of Pence to realize that Pence is 60% a penis. So that should be immediate. But anyway, thanks for watching. There's a show called Pen 15 that anyway, fine.